Hello my friends, welcome back to another tutorial. I hope you're all keeping very well out there. I haven't been that busy for the past 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks with regards to painting. I've just been so busy with family life, work, all that kind of stuff. So I haven't had a chance to sit down at my easel for about a week and a half to 2 weeks. And I miss it. I need some inspiration. This week I'm going to paint a lovely forest scene. This may seem like a little tricky to most of you, but if we just paint it in sections and concentrate on one section at a time, it will come together at the end. So when you see this reference photograph, don't be put off. Don't be thinking that it's just too much and there's too much going on. Just try to simplify it and take one step at a time. Okay. I find a lot of artists, beginners and amateurs, they tend to kind of look at a picture as a whole and they focus on too many little things at once as they're painting. So what I would say to you is just take your time. If you want to paint one section and leave it and come back another day and finish the next section, do that. Don't try to finish it all at once. I'm used to finishing paintings all at once and I like to keep going till I finish. I might just maybe make two parts out of this because there's a lot of work in it and I want to make it nice. So, you may have to come back to your easel 3 or 4 times, but do just take your time and concentrate, because I know that some people, they tend to, I suppose, almost rush to get it finished. And if you're rushing to get it finished, you're just not concentrating, you're just not putting it all into the painting. You just want to see a finished painting. But I think if you just take your time and just split the painting up into different sections, you could maybe just concentrate on the top half, then come back and concentrate on the second half on the bottom, and just take your time going through it. I find that helps. If you find you're getting frustrated halfway through a painting and it's just not working, or you can't get into the zone of painting and it's just not, you just don't feel it. If that happens, you're better off just stopping. Put down your brushes and go away, just have a cup of coffee, or come back another day or even another week and try again. Just don't be kind of pushed into rushing it all and getting it all finished. Okay, that's what I would say. So let's do a bit of painting. Let's have a bit of fun with this. A lovely warm forest scene. It's in County Wicklow here in Ireland. It's a beautiful scene. My good friend Suki put it up on her Facebook page as well, and I actually had this for months and months in my photo gallery on my phone to paint as a tutorial. I had it for months and months, and I don't know, something else just kept popping up instead. So when I see this on Facebook, I thought, yeah, I really have to paint a tutorial on this, because I think so many people would benefit from this. There's going to be a lot to learn. Trees, perspective, colour, creating a mood in a painting. So what we have is a beautiful forest scene. We have little metal steps going up through the forest. So they wiggle around and disappear off into the forest. It looks really beautiful on the photograph. I'm doing this on MDF. This is only 1/2 inch MDF. I think it's 18 millimeters or 15 millimeters, something like that. It's only a thin piece of MDF board, a spare piece I had in my shed. I primed it all the way around, front and back, gave it 2 coats of just white undercoat, gave it a very light rub of sandpaper. It's lovely and smooth, and we'll get some beautiful effects now with some MDF. It's nice and smooth, nice crisp lines, and lovely for blending as well. So let's try it. I have my palette laid out here. I'm on my paper palette today. I'll tell you what colours I have in just a moment. So if you want to learn something about oil painting, join me. Don't go anywhere. Okay, my friends, let's do this. There's a reference photograph. Now, isn't that lovely? It really, really is. Beautiful colours, and I love that glow in the centre. It just adds an air of mystique and mysteriousness into the painting. So this is going to be quite fun. I'll try and keep it simple for you, and we'll try and create a nice painting in the process. So there we go. My colours. I have titanium white, Naples yellow, cadmium yellow pale, burnt sienna, cadmium red, burnt umber, lamp black, phaylo blue, alizarin crimson, and magenta. I just put a nice selection of colours on my palette just to have a nice choice. Yes, So let's go. Let's do this. The size of my canvas is 20 by 16. Okay, my MDF board actually is 20 by 16. I think it may be a little bit bigger, but it's around that. 20 by 16, roughly. I'm going to take a new brush that I bought. I purchased. It's just a cheap, soft, synthetic brush. Okay, very cheap, very soft, because I just need to pick up a couple of extra larger brushes for doing big work like this. I have lots of small brushes which are quite good, but larger brushes, they tend to um, go hard over time, and I just need to pick off one or two loose hairs which are just sort of sticking out on the sides, and one in the middle there. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so large brush, any large brush you have. I'm not going to wet this with linseed oil or anything like that. I'm going to dampen this brush in some turpentine with some linseed oil, just a little. It's just slightly damp. And I'm going to start with this lovely warm area in here. Okay, let's start with that, and we'll work our way upwards to all the trees. So let's go. I'm going to take some burnt sienna. It's always strange when you use a new brush like this. It's just very, very soft. It takes a little bit of getting used to, I find. Looking at that colour in there, I'm going to say burnt sienna with a little touch of magenta. That's the colour I'm kind of picking up inside there. Let's just have a look. It's that kind of warm colour. Now, the problem with this is, because I'm using thin colours, you can see those brush strokes. That's because burnt sienna is a very translucent colour. In other words, you can see right through. You see that? You can see the brush strokes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a touch of Naples yellow, and that will thicken the paint up. It'll just make it nice and thick and creamy, and it will cover much better. A little touch of magenta, a little touch of Naples yellow, and burnt sienna. That should help just make it cover a little bit better, I think. I might try a touch of cadmium yellow there as well. I want to really get a nice glow in the center of the painting. I'm just going to come up like that. And this, now, look, we can change this as we go. We can add more to this later. I just let that set for a while. I'll try some cadmium yellow and a touch of burnt sienna. That will even in itself give me a nice warm colour for the center. And you may find you may have to go over this a few times to get the colour you want. But yeah, I'm happy enough with that. That's quite good. It's only a small section, isn't it? As it comes out, it's going to darken. Now we have a lot of green up here. You see this kind of green coming down. I'm just going to kind of cut that area off slightly so I don't go past that. And I'm going to start adding some burnt umber into the mix with a little cadmium red. And I'm going to start darkening this. I'll take a little magenta as well, actually. Burnt umber with magenta. And it has that just nice warm, dark, warm feeling about it. Now you'll notice also, if you're painting on MDF, you may find that the paint doesn't spread as much as it would on a canvas because it's a timber. So it's going to have a certain amount of soakage, and it's going to maybe just sort of soak in slightly more than it would on a canvas. It won't kind of scrape that far. You see what I mean? Looks like that. That's why with MDF you need to add plenty of thinners early on. So let me just dampen my brush again. I'm going to take some burnt umber and some magenta, and I think I'll go with a hint of cadmium red as well. So what I'm focusing on this at this moment in time is the dark shades. So if you look in around, it's just very dark, blacky brown, isn't it? So I'm going to focus on that colour first and then lighten it, put in my highlights, take a touch of black into that again and a touch of cadmium red. So I'm going for a very dark, blacky brown kind of a shade, look, just like that. There we go. And I'm going to soften that across gently into that warmer shade. And by the way, I'm going to be softening this as well with a blender brush in a moment. But for now, you can see it just has this lovely it kind of fizzles out into that dark, doesn't it? And look, I can even start softening that across and over the top. I'm keeping that nice glow. I just want that glow. I want to keep that. So I go up, I bring my brown, I think I'll bring my brown up like that sort of, up that direction. I'll fill this in with the brown, dark brown. So let's get plenty of thinners now. Let's get some burnt umber. I'll go with some crimson actually. Let's try some crimson for a change. I haven't used crimson in a long time actually. Let's try some crimson. Some crimson, burnt umber and a little black. And I'll just fill in all that dark. And remember what I was saying earlier, just work in stages. Just, you know, think of one stage at a time. So we started off light in the middle and we're getting darker as we come out. I like that effect. So black and a little crimson even. Go up here and put some black and crimson in, up here. Bring that down slightly. It's getting much darker. It's almost like a black here on the right hand side, isn't it? Let's just pop that across. And look, just take our time. I'm going to take my time with this. It's a fairly big sized board, so it's going to take a couple of mixes to get all of this in. Work that dark into that nice brown colour. And as it comes across, it lightens, doesn't it? I'm going to take some burnt sienna and a little Naples yellow, and that will lighten it into this sort of sandy kind of a colour. And also, if it helps you, you can add some linseed oil to the board or the canvas beforehand if you like, okay? It's completely up to yourself. If it helps the paint move around better, you can. But I like the MDF sometimes because of this reason. It allows you to sort of put a nice layer on and kind of mix it in to the colour that's there. So what I'm going to do now is I'll stop at that and I'm just going to soften all of this together with my well, I call it a soft blender brush. It's not very soft anymore. It's starting to go quite hard along the top where the paint has gone hard. So this might be tricky. Let's try it. It's kind of dragging the, yeah, that's not bad. It's dragging the paint around, but just softening those brush strokes out, you see. Doesn't matter if it leaves some brush marks in there. It's going to be covered with trees anyway. So I'm just want to soften away all of those brush strokes. But you can see I'm still keeping little shapes of the paint. You see that? And the MDF has a lovely effect. It doesn't blend too much on the board with the MDF. It sort of drags the paint around a little bit, allowing the marks of the brush to stay there slightly. And I love MDF for that reason. It has a lovely drag about it when you're softening like this. You can feel the drag on the board as opposed to a canvas. The canvas can get quite wet, but this is lovely. It's almost kind of soaking into the board underneath slightly. So it has this lovely drag and it can control the blending. So it's not blending too much. It's just nice. It's just enough. So I'm pretty happy now with this so far. I'm just looking. I just keep looking, and I'm going to sit back now and just have a fast look at that. I like the colours in that now. That's nice. Okay, let's go over and put a nice dark in up here. Let me just dampen the brush, dab it on some tissue, take some black and some crimson. It does look black, but I'm going to keep it kind of a warm black. So the black with a little hint of crimson will just warm the colour slightly. So it's not pure black. I'm going to put that up there like that. And again, I'm just using the reference photograph as a reference. I'm not going to try and copy this exactly. All right. It's just a reference. As it comes down, it's going to start warming. So I'm going to pick up some sienna. And I really just have paint now at this stage. It's just paint, nothing else. Sienna with a hint of crimson. It's just kind of a warm brown. And I'm going to soften that just down slightly like this, you see, just creating a little bit of a bank way off in the distance there. It's almost disappearing into that light colour. And then soften it in. And it's basically just dabbing. And by doing that, you can already see it's giving the impression of sort of bushes and stuff way, way off in the distance. So just dab that together, come down, just keep dabbing, creating a very hazy effect off in the distance, way, way off, through the forest. You see what I mean? That's quite nice now. I kind of like that. I like that. That's quite nice. What I'm going to do next, before I go any further, I want to get a hint of suggestions of some tree trunks way, way off in the distance. Very soft tree trunks. I'm just going to grab a very small pointy brush and I'm just going to dampen it just so it gets to a nice point. I'm going to just take some sienna. I think let's try some sienna. Maybe a little crimson. So it's basically just a darker shade of what we have. I'm just going to pop in suggestion way, way off in the distance through the forest. Look, just a suggestion of one or two little tree trunks and all that kind of stuff just showing through ever so slightly. I'll take a little touch of that darker colour, add one or two darker ones. This is just really a very, very loose suggestion, all right? As they come forward, I'm going to start darkening them. I'm going to take some burnt umber, perhaps a touch of crimson, and I have a little tiny bit of thinners in this now as well. They're just disappearing up there into the canopy, you see? And what I'll do then, you could even take, if you want, with this small brush, a little touch of cadmium yellow, a little touch of white, and a tiny touch of burnt sienna. And you could just add a little light in between as well. And that's just reaffirming that light area in there, giving hints of light in between these. Then I'll simply take my soft fan brush, which is not very soft, but you know, and I'm just going to sort of soften these back into that colour. And it's already starting to dry into the board, so this is nice. It's not too messy. So look, I can just soften these back in ever so slightly, maybe just along there as well. It's just creating a nice effect of some trees way, way off in the distance through the wood. It's just giving a very slight effect. And if you find this is a bit too complicated, you can just leave these out, really, you can. You don't have to try and, you know, copy everything that I'm doing exactly. Let's go up and start putting some green in up here. I think we need some green, don't we? Some warm, warm green. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to focus on the darker shade. So if you look through all the foliage, find the darkest colour you can see. It's almost just like a soft brown, isn't it? Let's put that in. A nice soft brown. Let's get some burnt umber, some Naples yellow. And it's a very soft colour, so I'm going to put plenty of Naples yellow in this. Very soft brown and a touch of magenta. Lots of Naples yellow. Little touch of thinner, so thin it slightly. Let me take a look at this. That's not bad. I'm going to go with that. Because what I'm looking at now, as I'm looking at my reference photograph, I'm not looking at the green on the trees. You see that rich green foliage? I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at the soft brown behind that foliage. And that's the colour I want to try and achieve. We'll soften it back in here. I could have just brought this right across really realistically. I could have just brought that right back all the way over. But it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. So I'm going to just kind of soften this then down into that warm shade underneath. I mean, if you look, you can kind of flick your brush around just to create the impression of some movement off there in the distance. You see, just pushing it through. Then I'm going to soften that out. And we'll do the green, the nice rich green next. I'm going to create a warm green for these trees, that foliage. Going around the circle is just making it nice and soft. That's all. Use whichever technique comes to you, whichever technique you prefer to use, just use that. So let's go with this green. I'm going to clean this brush, and I'm sticking with this large brush now because I quite like this brush. It seems to give a nice effect. And I'm going to go for a warm green. This is a little bit wet now, so I may leave that dry just for a couple of minutes. It's kind of soaking into the board. It's really nice. Let's try some cadmium yellow. Let's come down here and try a nice clean area. And to create a nice warm green, let's try lamp black with cadmium yellow. That will give you this kind of warm olive green. And you can add more and more yellow into it to warm it even more and brighten it even more. It's up to yourself. Maybe a touch of white. Small touch. And you can see I have a little bit of brown on my brush. You see the way the brown is coming off like that, look, on my palette. Okay, I'm just going to rub the thick side of my brush, that section, just give that a rub on some tissue, get some of that brown off. And just keep mixing. I'm going to mix up a lot of this now because we have a big area to cover. So cadmium yellow, a little black. You could probably add a touch of phaylo blue if you want, but I don't want it too cold. I want to keep it warm because there's a lot of warmth in the painting. Cold greens may not work for this, so I'm being careful. More yellow. I'm thinking more yellow into that. You can mess around with these colors, okay? Just have a bit of fun. Let's see. I'm just going to start dabbing it in, and it's mixing with the brown slightly. You see? That's okay. We're working towards a light color. So what I'll do is actually this is quite nice. I'm going to start softening this color into that dark over there, just to start creating the foliage, start bringing it out slightly. And I'm just kind of doing this flicking movement. Let that soften back, soften back. And we're not going for a photographic picture in this, all right? I'm just going for a nice impression. It's a painting, it's not a photograph. As I always say, and if you know me by now, I always say if you want a painting to look like a photograph, just go and take a photograph and frame it. Because what's the fun in having a painting that looks just like a photograph? For me, I like to be able to see brush strokes and all of that. It's just, I don't see it as a lot of fun trying to spend hours and hours in front of a canvas trying to create a photographic image on a canvas. That for me is just, it doesn't seem like fun, to be quite honest. I prefer to have a natural oil painting feeling to my paintings. And I'm going to maybe use a palette knife as well in this in just a moment. But first now I'm just going to kind of soften all of this through, create a nice soft feeling. Dab, 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 sort of swirl your brush, just whatever comes to mind to create this nice soft feeling of it disappearing in to that darkness. We can even use our fan brush. We could just sort of swirl that around in little swirls, soften it back in. You see what I mean? Just being very loose with this. This is just really sort of the initial colour, the start of the blocking in. I go with my palette knife, I think, and just create real thick shades of colour. But already it's starting to come to life a little bit, isn't it? The colours are quite nice. I like the colours. Now, let's sit back and take a look at this. Okay. I'm just going to fix the quality on camera just for a moment. I just want to get a nice, clean, crisp picture. That's a bit better. Sometimes those cameras on the phones, they kind of autofocus, don't they? And you lose the sharpness. Let's grab a palette knife. I'm going to go with this. And I need some fresh cadmium yellow on my palette. This is where it gets fun. Come on, let's grab the knife and let's just have a bit of fun with this. Let's not worry. Grab some cadmium yellow and let's grab a touch of phaylo blue and some white. I think I've got that colour now pretty good. That's a nice bright green, okay? Load up your palette knife. Let's just create some rough foliage coming down. You see the way it's sort of falling down into the painting like that, doesn't it? I like that, that's quite nice. That gives a nice effect, doesn't it? Another little bit kind of coming off over here. And you see, I'm kind of softening it back then into that darker colour. You see that? Look, dabbing it and scratching it back. That creates kind of a nice effect now, doesn't it? So you're learning as you go with this type of a painting all the time. You see that? Isn't that quite nice? It's amazing what you can do with a palette knife, really, if you just try it. A lot of people are just afraid of a palette knife. A lot of people are intimidated by a palette knife, but it's there to help, and you won't know until you try. Isn't that right? Isn't that lovely? Lovely effect. And it's just by scraping. Let's get some more. Cadmium yellow, touch of phaylo blue, tiny touch, and some white. Give that a good mix up there, don't be shy. Bit more yellow. Just keep going until you get the colour you like. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with this colour. Let's go over here. You can use the tip of the knife as well. See the way I'm kind of just scratching it in there? And then come back and soften it back in. We get that paint off of the back of the knife as well. Okay, let's grab some more and pop a little bit of that up here. Nice little. So you see, we're kind of creating nice little bunches of foliage. And different layers. And that's probably the important thing to remember, is layers. So we're creating one layer, we're softening it back, and then we're creating another layer in front of that. That's probably the easiest way for me to describe what I'm doing. So I do apologize if you don't understand. I'm trying to explain it as best I can as I go. Sometimes it's quite difficult to explain a technique when you're recording on camera. It's just, sometimes it's very difficult. I'm just scraping this on now to my board. And it's really nice that the MDF board is sort of drying in slightly, because you can really soften colours in very nicely, you see. And you can scrape it back and soften it in. just has this wonderful effect. It really does. And that's quite nice. Now I don't want to kind of keep it all the same as I go. I want to add a little something different here and there. So I could always try a fan brush as well as we get up higher. Let's grab a fan brush and try it. Come on. Why not? Let's have a bit of fun. You know, painting is all about trying different things, isn't it? I'll take this fan brush. I'm going to dampen that. Let's mix up some of that colour. Little touch of thinners. And it's just mix up the same colour with the fan brush. I may warm it slightly as it comes up. Little touch of sienna as well. This may not work, it may work, I don't know. Let's just try it. I just want to create some roughage up there, some foliage. Very rough foliage. Touch of blue, I think. I think it needs to be cooler as it goes up. I'm just creating a very rough impression. You see that? Just a rough impression of some foliage. The higher up it goes. Bring it back just slightly in here. Just slightly. I'm not going to go too far with that. Now I'll stop at that, and the last thing I'm going to do is get my palette knife, and I'm just going to make another mix and just really hit some highlights on this. Again, I need some cadmium yellow. I hope you're able to follow this okay. Remember what I said, just try sections at a time. So don't worry about any of this or any of this. Just concentrate on this. That's what I would say. Just let's focus on these little bits of green up here. Now I'm making this slightly cooler and also brighter. Okay, just a little brighter because I want to just catch the very ends of some of these. Let's mix up plenty, don't be shy, come on. Now let's just grab some of that. And I'm thinking just along here, look. You can see there's some really bright parts just here and there, isn't there? Just, I suppose, at the very ends where the light catches them. It needs to be brighter. Especially down here, look, there's a lovely, the way they just sort of flick outwards and downwards down here. That's kind of, that's quite nice, isn't it? And we'll come in here, just add a few in there. And just keep going like this until you're happy. Look, you might have your own technique for doing trees and stuff like that. Whatever works for you. I'm just trying to try different things just to open up possibilities. You might, you know, as you're trying different things, you might discover a way of doing something which really works. And you think to yourself, I like that. I might try that more often. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to just try something different. Let's come up here and put some of that light in up there. So it's coming kind of out of the canopy and it's catching the light of the sky overhead. A couple of tiny little flicks here and there just to create an impression of some detail way off in the distance. I'm going to sit back and take a look. Okay, yeah, that's not bad. And we'll come over and perhaps do one or two in here. I'm going to just lighten a little bit more. Isn't it amazing what you can do with a palette knife? I think there's so many different applications for a palette knife, I find, with painting, and that's why I just love to use them. And just one or two up here, just one or two. I'll come back and just put one or two in here. I'm just flicking kind of the tip of the knife. That's pretty much what I'm doing. Just flicking it around, just to create little small, tiny little swirls of paint. See that? Look, just pop a few in here and there. And I think lastly, before I finish on this, I'm going to just go very bright to the very last step. Even brighter, I would say. And I'm going to stop at that. And then what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take my fan brush and soften some of this into the background as it comes up. I want it to sort of disappear into the background. So I'm taking my time with this painting. Normally, when I'm doing a tutorial, I would kind of just fly along very quickly. But this reference photograph is so lovely. I just really want to do it justice. That's all. So I'm taking my time. If I have to do 3 different parts to this, I will do 3 parts. But I really do want to take my time and give it a good effort. So this is what I would normally do now if I'm sitting down in my studio, not recording, and I'm painting. I would take my time like this. But the worry is that if I do a tutorial like this, you'll just get bored, you might switch off, or just skip to the very end. So I hope you don't, because you're going to miss some very interesting techniques. I'll stop at that. Let me take a look. Right, for the last step on this, what I might do is pop some branches and stuff in. Let's go. Let's have some fun with branches, shall we? I'm going to get a small pointy brush now. I just need to find a small pointy brush. I know I have some new ones somewhere in here, in my little jar of brushes. There's one, look. Nice new pointy brush. Let's mix up a nice colour. Let's get some burnt umber. Plenty of thinners in this. Make it go nice and thin, like water. A little bit of burnt umber. Touch of black, perhaps. Let's try this and see. I want to just bring some branches across in front of some of this foliage. And what happens, you see, with the oils is that these are now softening into the greens, you see. It's softening and disappearing. That's quite nice. I like that. It gives a very natural effect. You see that? So if this was acrylics, you would find that it just covers on top of the paint. With the oils, you see they sort of blend in. And it's even picking up some of the green and creating small highlights on the branches at the same time. And that's quite nice. I like that. And simply twist your brush as you go. See, I'm twisting my brush as I go. That's kind of lifting off the paint and putting it onto the board. Take a touch more black. And let's just pop a lot of branches coming down from the canopy overhead. Just keep grabbing some thinners and fresh paint. Just keep going. Keep going. Don't stop. Just have a bit of fun. Because we can always cover some of these with extra foliage if we make a mistake. So don't be worried about making mistakes either. I'm going to get a nice little branch coming up here like this. That will be the start of our thick trees coming up. And I might then just add one or two small highlights with a Naples yellow and a touch of burnt sienna. Just one or two small highlights on some of these, or even on their own. Like that, for example. You could have one or two bright ones as well coming into the painting. And you see how that's kind of softening right back in very quickly. Let's just get plenty of turpentine on this. And that's creating a nice little bit of interest up there now, isn't it? And I think I'll leave that as it is. I might just darken this tree trunk with some burnt umber coming down, and that's almost like the start of our dark canopy there coming up. All right. And there we are. I think it's coming on pretty nice. I'm quite happy with that. What time have we? We have 40 minutes. I think I have time to put in some thick tree trunks in there. I'm going to grab a slightly bigger round brush. Let's start putting in some tree trunks. Okay, I'm going to take some burnt umber. Again, lots of thinners. Burnt umber, Naples yellow, and some magenta. So I'm going to start putting in the light side of the trees, because we already have the dark in there, some of the dark. So I'm going to focus now on just putting in some of the light sides. So I'm starting on the left hand side of the tree. I'm going to just start putting in some of the highlights. I need to go a bit brighter than that, don't I? burnt sienna, Naples yellow. And again, look, I'm not copying the photograph. I'm just going my own with this, making it up myself. You know, look, I'm just looking, I suppose, at colours. But for the most part, I'm not really copying the photograph. I do like to try and make it something my own a little bit as well. And then I'm going to put a nice dark in the back. I'm going to take some burnt umber and some black and some crimson. I'm going to just put in a nice dark at the back of those. Even a touch of burnt sienna as well, look. I want it nice and dark, but a warm kind of a dark. I'm just going to pop that in there. I'm coming down, I'm going to soften this in to the light side. It's disappearing up, and then we have another dark in here. Let's get some nice rich burnt umber, perhaps with some cadmium red. Pop that in there. So I'm creating now the dark side of the trees. Okay, the tree trunks. I'm going to soften that all across into the light, simply just scraping it up and down, look. And that just gives you a little effect of the bark on the tree. And this dark as well will act as a separation between them. Okay, you can see what I mean. And what I'll do then is, now, next I'm going to take a palette knife. It just popped into my head just this minute. Why not try this? I'm going to try a palette knife, take some Naples yellow and a little magenta. It just kind of popped into my head just as I was painting those tree trunks there. How about we try the palette knife just on the edge and create a nice little light on the edge, the outside edge of the tree trunk, just catching the light. How about we try it? We just started dabbing like this, very gently, just dabbing, mixing it in, just creating a sort of a roughage on the tree trunk. How about that? What do you think? Just using the back end of the knife, just a little touch of the knife here and there. I don't think that looks too bad. What do you think? And you can mix it up a bit. You could add a little touch of sienna in there as well. You know, it's all about having fun and trying it. If you don't try it, you're never going to know, are you? Pop a little sienna on there as well. I don't want to lose my dark too much, so I'm just being a little careful. Even a touch of cadmium red as well, adding some colour. How's that? I think that gives quite a nice effect. I might even also add a touch of a light green here and there. And that would also give us the effect of a bit of moss growing on the tree trunk. Just let them come. I'm quite happy with the progress on this so far. How about you? What do you think? Let me know. I'm going to call this part 1 finished. I don't want to overdo the video. I'd like to just let you absorb it in, what we've done so far. Just take it in. Try this section if you like. And then we'll crack on and do part 2. I need to know, it's a good idea, as I said, just to stop, take a break, and then go back to it another time. I'm going to stop, I'm going to have a cup of coffee, and I'll stand back and take a look and see how it all kind of looks together, the colours and all of that. So I'm quite happy with that. And that's it, my friends. Part one is finished. Thank you so much. I'll be back with part 2 in the coming hours. I'll just take a break now just to assess what I've done, take a good look at it. Where am I going to go next? What will I do? What will I use in terms of colours and all of that? So I'll just take a little break and I'll come back to it. But that's quite nice. I'm liking that. It may go to a part 3 even. I'll try not to, because I know you like to crack on and get painting. But we'll see how part 2 goes. We may just have a little bit to do at the end of part 2, which could make a small part 3 tutorial. Anyway, enough of me blabbering on. Enjoy. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't done so, do subscribe. You're missing a lot of fun painting. Just keep it simple. Try to have fun with your painting, not take it too seriously. Just grab a palette knife, just like I did. Try it and see what happens. You never know. It could turn out wonderful, much better than you expected. So just grab some different tools and try them. Alright? I'll be right back anyway, and thank you so much, my friends, for watching. I'll see you very shortly.